for originally scheduled for last week, but postponed to this week. And thank you for making your way out. Grateful to be over here in Garden City this time. As far as I remember, this is the first time we've met as a council on this side of the watershed. And I know we saved, or in an effort to balance, making everybody drive from here to there, we're spreading it around. Wish the weather was a little better. Apologize that happened to be the case, but grateful to see the Bear Lake as we pulled in and my view, the single largest feature of the watershed on display today. So with that, we'll begin. So I'm this being my first full meeting as the chair. I'm Mark Hurd, and I'm grateful to be here and have the opportunity to muddle through this first experience and learn and know what I can do better next time. Figure we better make some introductions because I do recognize there's a couple of new faces in the room. So like I said, I'm Mark Hurd, and I'm on this council as a representative for secondary users, specifically the Hyde Park Canal Company, as well as an alternate hat as the county council member from Cache County.
I'm Chance Baxter. I'm the vice chair. I represent the Bear River Water Conservancy District.
Sean Milne. I work for the Bear River Association of Governments, so I'm one of the few non-water related folks.
And if you don't mind, I'd like to go around the room for everybody so I can make sure I put a face to every name on her list as well.
Okay. Tom Moore, Utah Division of Water Resources. Governance and Bear River.
I'm Brandon Udy. I live in Cache Valley and Mike Stevenson from the City of Utah's Scripps Commissioner's Office.
Nathan Dash.
Harley May, Watershed Council's coordinator.
Mitch Polson, Executive Director of Bear Lake Regional Commission.
Yeah, Weston, Bear Lake Town on Woodruff Dam. Mark Skadden, Bear Lake Lodge.
Skylar Buck, Utah Water Rights.
Diane Doyle, Utah Water.
Okay, thank you, everyone. Best to remember names.
Can I ask a real quick question? Carly, is the recording active?
I believe so.
Okay, and
Yes.
also if we could get introductions from those that are online.
Great. Connelley, why don't we begin with you, then Jim and Melissa. We'll go to that point.
Connelley Baldwin, hydrologist, Pacific Corp, and I'm on the council representing industrial and kind of also irrigation as well. Thanks.
Hello, everybody. Jim Dorito, Bear River Program Director for Trout Unlimited, representing Fish and Wildlife.
I'm Melissa Early with Division of Wildlife Resources, dressed up like a moose today for Halloween. I'm the watershed liaison. Also work on road ecology issues. So just a reminder to watch out for wildlife on the move as migration's happening as you drive back into Logan.
And then Val J, and I think that's everybody online.
Val J. Rigby, Utah Farm Bureau.
Okay, thanks, Mr. Chairman.
Yep. Okay, thank you everyone for the introductions. And I should mention, my Halloween costume is an eternal optimist. This might be the Bill's year. Okay, thank you for that. So the next item we have scheduled on our agenda is a presentation of Bear Lake Management that Connelley will lead. So we'll turn the time over to you, Connelley.
And Connelley, just give us a split second while you're setting up the share screen. Carly's working on what seems to be maybe a cable issue from the laptop to the monitor so we can all see you. We can hear you just fine throughout the, well, can you, Mayor? Mayor and Mitch, you guys can hear pretty well? All right, stand by just a second. We can see that you're sharing it.
Now I can't hear you.
Okay. They're like glitches. We see it for a minute there, Connelley, and then it goes away, but hold on just a second.
Oh, maybe. I might have,
Yeah,
I might have.
don't, oh, I was gonna say, don't sneeze, but go ahead, it's still flashing.
That's all I got happening.
That's all you get now.
I was gonna tell you while you waited. This was the first time I didn't have to leave 30 minutes to an hour for the kids. I couldn't problem. Sorry.
Now we all get to, return the favor that you do so often.
Yeah, we appreciate the fact that you've always made the drive on our behalf.
All right, you guys ready?
All right.
I was muted here, sorry.
Well, that's okay. Yeah, we're trying a new cable. and a
Oh,
new
good,
input,
okay.
And we think if nobody sneezes, it'll probably be okay. All right, we good to go? Okay, Connelley, over to you.
All right. Well, maybe just a little bit more about me, kind of background, water resources, master's degree and civil engineering undergraduate from Utah State. And I've been working here at Pacific Corp for 21 years. Always kind of a piece of my duties has been Bear Lake, and that's kind of my most enjoyable aspect. And so, yep, it's been very interesting, and the history kind of will also kind of lead into how I am a hydrologist working for the power company here. So this is a view of the watershed, maybe a little bit different than you've seen before. This is looking south. So the Bear River is highlighted in blue, and it kind of starts there at your upper left in the high Uintas of Utah. And then it flows from there into Wyoming, south of Evanston. And then after flowing through Evanston, it goes into Woodruff Narrows Reservoir, and then back into Utah for a while, out in there, Woodruff and Randolph, and then into Wyoming through Cokeville. And then it turns the corner into Idaho. And then you can kind of see in Idaho, there's a dam that diverts the water into Bear Lake that we'll talk about, and then a very low-lying dam that helps keep water in the Mud Lake area that then, when the water is pumped out of Bear Lake, it comes back down into the river. And it stays in Idaho, and there's a few dams, 3 dams in Idaho that are power production dams that are not irrigation storage. And then there's one in Utah, Cutler Dam, that is for irrigation diversions and power production as well. And so that's kind of the Bear River Basin. And so you can kind of see on the left things we'll talk about here as we go. And of course, we're going to kind of focus on the lower division here, the Bear River Compact that we'll talk about, since the Bear River is an interstate stream, splits it up into 3 divisions. And then the lower division kind of starts right here at this diversion dam that Pacific Corp predecessors built. And then the division point between the central and the upper is just a little ways north, rather south of Cokeville, at a very small diversion dam that splits the upper air basin into the central division and the upper division. So, and then another interesting point on this map is I've highlighted kind of the rough service area of the irrigation companies that receive supplemental water from Bear Lake. So there's the Last Chance Canal Company in the Grace area. There are a few small pumpers in the reach above Oneida. There's a large area for Cub River on the east side of the river and West Cache on the west side of the river. There are also a few small pumpers that pump directly out of Cutler and out of the river there. And then the largest single canal company is Bear River Canal Company, and they are in Box Elder County there. And their diversion point is right off of Cutler Dam. So kind of giving you a little bit of a background there. So if we focus on Bear Lake proper, it is a natural lake, and when it's full, it's 7.1 million acre feet. And the upper 21.65 feet of the about 200 feet depth at a maximum, the upper 21.5 feet is 1.4 million acre feet. That's the active storage for a reservoir. And it's interesting to note that the Bear River, when settlers came, the Bear River flowed north of Bear Lake and did not enter Bear Lake directly. But subsequently, some coring and paleoclimate investigations revealed that the Bear River at times, and actually for most of the time of the last 220,000 years, the Bear River did flow into Bear Lake. And the same coring and other facts about the way that Bear Lake developed, specifically the east shore, you see always in the pictures, and down here you kind of see the stark relief of the mountains on the east side of the valley. That there's a fault line that is an active fault, and the bottom of Bear Lake is dropping relative to the mountains there, and so it's getting deeper over time. And so instead of filling in with sediment over time, as most natural lakes do, it has had a stable environment and has 4 endemic fish that have evolved in the Bear Lake ecosystem. So in the early years when the settlers came, there was quite a bit of interest in utilizing the natural lake as a reservoir. It started off with the part of the explorations of the USGS, and they identified it readily as a U.S. reservoir #1 because of the topography that we'll look at here next, that made it an ideal spot to utilize as a reservoir. So you can kind of see the different infrastructure items we have there. We have Stewart Dam that diverts the Bear River into the Rainbow Inlet Canal. And the canal enters and then goes into the Mud Lake area, and then through the inlet causeway, which allows water to flow from Mud Lake into Bear Lake. And then it's then pumped out from the Lifton pumping station and flows out the outlet canal, which is that cyan line. And then kind of partway down, there's a very low-lying berm dam that is used to help use the Mud Lake wetland area as a regulating reservoir for flows into and out of Bear Lake. So I find it helpful to kind of look at a profile view. So in this view, you have north on the left and south on the right, and the lake area, the lake depths are kind of roughly to scale. And the Bear River, if we start over here on the left, it comes in at an elevation that's above Mud Lake and Bear Lake. And then as it flows through the valley, it exits the valley below the elevation of Mud Lake and Bear Lake. So that helps facilitate gravity inflow into Mud Lake. And you can kind of see from the relative sizes that Mud Lake is a very shallow area. It's only about 10 feet deep when at its desired elevation range. And then there's a natural berm that built up from kind of wave action when the Bear River did flow in, and that separates Mud Lake and Bear Lake. And there was a natural outlet through the berm that was probably quite a bit lower than the maximum elevation of the lake that we keep it to now, that it was kind of a little bit filled in, but largely that berm is natural. There were not very many changes or additions made to that. And so the water does flow in by gravity. You can kind of see this yellow highlighted area. It represents the targeted elevation for Mud Lake from 5920 to 5921, and then the target elevation on Bear Lake from 5916 to 5920. And kind of represented the operational range goes quite a bit lower than the bottom of Mud Lake. And so the water is pumped out into Mud Lake, and then it flows through the outlet canal that's dredged through that area, and then out the head gates for the outlet canal, and then flows back to the Bear River that way. Taking a little more kind of an overhead view that's just the schematics. You can kind of follow the water here, and it's just kind of very similar, but kind of flows in from the east and south into Mud Lake and Bear Lake, and then back north, and then kind of north and northwest to get back to the Bear River. So there's a lot of words here, but basically I'll just talk through it. It's basically how we operate. And so starting with spring runoff on April 1st, we usually, we always are storing water beginning April 1. Even if we were releasing water for flood control previously, then we start storing on April 1st, and either to control the flows downstream or for irrigation. And as the spring runoff kind of wanes, often the natural flow downstream that the irrigators are using is insufficient as irrigation demand picks up. And so then we open the outlet canal and release water through there. But at that point, it's water that is just flowing from the Bear River in through the Rainbow into Mud Lake and then going right back out the outlet. And obviously you could kind of have it go past down the old channel to get back to the Bear River and not divert it. But it's just more convenient when you then, soon after that bypass period, you have to start pumping Bear Lake to supplement irrigation. And so that's more convenient to already have the water flowing when it's just a small portion of the water that will eventually be needed downstream soon after the spring runoff is over. So during the summer, we're pumping from Bear Lake to provide downstream irrigation. And then in the fall, we're setting up PacifiCorp target elevation. So that's what PTE is there. And it's just the target that is set to get the lake down to by the beginning of the following spring runoff. So March 31st, so just before spring runoff, that's our target. And only if we're well above that do we then release water from Bear Lake during the winter. So normally it's we're storing all winter long at Bear Lake. And so the target elevation is not a fixed target. We do have a default of 5918, but then beginning in January, we can adjust that target and release more or less water as needed for downstream flood control. So just a note on the Bear River, the hydro operations downstream. We noted the dams in those spots, and all those dams have powerhouse associated with them. And Grace is the oldest and most efficient. It has 425 feet of head. All the others have about 100 feet of head. And it's pretty unique. It has a 5-mile flow line, and half of it is a wood stave design that we're looking to replace here soon, but it's pretty unique. And keep our power reservoirs full. We'd use them a little bit to adjust the timing of downstream irrigation needs. And at Cutler, that's kind of the very bottom end. So Cutler is kind of our buffer for irrigation. And Bear River Canal Company that gets their water from Cutler Dam is the last user of Bear Lake storage water, and there's no other higher senior water rights for natural flow downstream of there. So it's essentially a dry dam at Cutler during the irrigation season. And so you can kind of see our plants there, about 107 megawatts total, and then a few smaller plants there. And it's interesting to note the Parish Creek, we have a plant there that will be decommissioned soon. So the elevations are kind of interesting to kind of look back and see. We had very interesting years in 2011 and 2017 when the lake came up almost 12 feet. And that was even more than we had in the high water years of the 1980s when we were starting at around our target elevation of 5918. But in 2011 and 2017, we were down around 5912. Even lower, a little bit lower, 5910 and 5911. And so we had quite a very dramatic increase. And then you'll notice further back in 2004, the drought, the lake got very close to its historic low elevation there. And then this is the range for the March 31st targets. And so you can kind of see in these years where we had plentiful water, the lake would be drawn down to close to that target and then kind of fill in that spring runoff and then be released back for irrigation or flood control in those years. Kind of a different view of this is looking at just at the annual increase and decrease from Bear Lake. So that just kind of emphasizes the uniqueness of these 2 years in 2011 and 2017. And kind of on an annual scale, Bear Lake usually goes down about 3 feet. In the very heavy pumping years for irrigation, come down up to 5.5 or so feet. And even though now the releases are only for irrigation or flood control, all of the water is used for power production on a kind of a incidental basis. But in the early years, the power plants on the Bear River really supplied the majority of the power for the Wasatch Front and the whole region. And so the water was released for power at that point. You kind of see in 1 year, 1926, it went down almost 8 feet. So that's kind of an interesting little tidbit that kind of the lake elevations don't really make clear, but that's kind of an interesting piece of history there. Another interesting kind of water balance aspect, this shows kind of the monthly average water balances. So all of the inflows and outflows for January through December. And so you can kind of see the Bear River inflow is this bar up top. The bars below are the releases or the water that leaves Bear Lake. And so it's pumped out, but also a lot of it leaves by evaporation. And then below the inflow, this cyan color is calculated the groundwater and tributary streams contributions, which is significant. And then direct precipitation does help a little bit there, but you can kind of see that pattern. And so you can kind of also kind of see what the lake was like or would be like. You could kind of imaginarily kind of remove the top and the bottom, the in and outs, and then this would kind of be the remaining water balance. So on a long-term average basis, we put about 159,000 acre feet of water into Bear Lake, and then we take out 180,000 acre feet. And there's about 174,000 acre feet of groundwater and tributary streams on an annual long-term basis that enters Bear Lake. 59,000 acre feet of precipitation, and then evaporation takes out 215,000 acre feet. So when I ran the numbers, it looked like that there was about 19,000 acre feet per year that would have kind of spilled out of Bear Lake on average, about 27 CFS on a continuous average basis. So that's kind of a interesting little hydrologic insight there. I've already kind of alluded to the history already quite a bit, but as the electrification happened and demand grew, they had lots of small hydro plants on the tributaries, along the Wasatch Front, but the Bear River was a much larger source that was needed before the advent of coal-fired power plants. And so this was a very important aspect and prompted the power company to sign a perpetual agreement with Bear River Canal Company, and then 5 other irrigation agreements, since the federal government required that the water be released for irrigation and flood control as well. And so that is why the power company is still kind of in the irrigation business. So that's part of our ongoing obligations there. So I noted the 2004 low, but in 1936 was when it actually hit its historic low of 5902. The 21.65 feet of the active reservoirs counted from 5902 elevation up to 5923.65. And we noted that 1926, when the lake went down almost 8 feet, that was some power releases, probably quite a bit of water released through the winter. and late fall for irrigation, not irrigation, but for power downstream. And it's, I think I heard or read in some of my historical readings that that was part of what prompted the compacting process that was originally signed in 1955, and then there was an amended compact in 1980. And so there was in the original compact an irrigation reserve below which the water could not be released solely for power. And then in the amended agreement, they also referenced Bear Lake by its threshold of 5911 that it was instituted, above which there would be additional storage allowed upstream of Bear Lake. And that's an important component of the storage for the upper division users. In 1995, there was an agreement signed because the environmental interests around the lake were concerned about the fact that there was no limit, explicit limit on the irrigation delivered from Bear Lake. And so that prompted an agreement there that we would not enter into any more irrigation agreements. And it also established an allocation limit, basically rationing the water that is released from Bear Lake based on the elevation, so that at very low lake levels there would be very little released. And it was it's not super restrictive. It does have a maximum. It does kind of decrease as you decrease in elevations, but it's in very low lake conditions, when there's really not a whole lot of storage left, it allows a little bit of a forced rationing from year to year if there's back-to-back droughts like there was in 2003 and 2004. It kind of spreads out that remaining available water over 2 or 3 years instead of using all in 1 year and then not having any available in the following year. And following the settlement agreement, the Bear Lake settlement agreement was the agreements between between Pacific Corp and the 3 states. And that was motivated by an acquisition that caused the states to be concerned that Pacific Corp would change their operations. So it requires historic operations, and similar to the Bear Lake settlement agreement, it required that Pacific Corp not enter into any more irrigation delivery agreements. In 1965, I think it was 65, the settlement, the Bear Lake National Wildlife Refuge was established. And so that was kind of on top of Pacific Corp's right of way to use it as a regulating reservoir. And so we work together and have that target elevation. And the elevation of the lake Mud Lake does need to increase well above that, up to 5923.8 or so, to push water if Bear Lake were ever needed to be increased to its maximum of 23.65. But that's pretty rare. So it's the irrigation that is diverted from the Bear River by the 6 irrigation companies that receive Bear Lake storage water below Bear Lake. So this is kind of the main stem irrigation from the Bear River. The total annual is shown by the top of the light blue bar, and I kind of highlight it there in yellow a little bit that you can see. And so that average is kind of between 400 to 450,000 acre feet of total demand. And obviously you can see kind of it's a little higher in dry years and a little lower in the wet years, as precipitation that falls directly on the crops supplements the diverted water. And then the light blue, and so the top of the green bar is the proportion of that total that is met by the natural flow of the river. And that includes the water that might come down from the rainbow, which is a relatively small part of this in most years, but can be significant in those wetter years. And then the blue bar is the volume of storage water released for irrigation downstream. And then this white bar is the white bar, including the blue bar, is the total allocation, such that when there's a white area, that's the allocation remaining that wasn't used. And so you can kind of see that very frequently the allocation is not completely used. Obviously here in 2003, it was used completely with just a hair's breadth left. Same in 2004. There's a slightly more available left at the end of the year there because there was some fall rains that really helped supplement that. And then the other year that was quite concerning was 2021. And that just had such a very low natural flow runoff that the irrigation demand was used much more of the storage than they were normally used to. And so again, kind of the rain in late July and into August really helped a lot. There was some cutbacks and some scrimping and saving and reductions in storage water used by irrigators early on. And at one point they were on track to exceed the maximum. You can kind of see they still only used about 400,000 acre feet. And I think if the storage hadn't been a factor, I think they probably would have used quite a bit more because it was such a dry year. So there's probably quite a bit of kind of conservation and unmet need that went in that year. And you can also see kind of the natural flow was quite low in that year as well. So about a little over half of the water, about 56% of the water was from storage water in that year, which is the highest that has been in this 1980 to 2023 period. So one other interesting, maybe just tidbit, the pump usage is at the lift-in pumps is kind of interesting. About 2/3 of the time, we're not pumping at all. So we're off pretty much all the time. And that's because when we're filling Bear Lake during the winter and in the spring, we don't need pumps. We only need pumps for irrigation. And then for that relatively rare time when we're releasing Bear Lake storage water for high runoff control for downstream purposes. So if you look just at the days where we're actually pumping, you can kind of see much more frequently pumping low rates than high rates. And these high rates obviously are then the peak of the summer when the irrigation demand far exceeds the natural supply. And so we're supplying up to 1,600 CFS from the pumps. So that is, I've actually gone well over time. So we'll just take see if we have any questions or comments if we have time for that.
Yeah, thank you, Connelley. Yeah, certainly. If there's questions from the group, I'll open the floor to any questions. Quiet group. Okay, yeah, really the only question I had, Connelley, would be the availability of this data. Is this something that we could find in another, like online, or how readily available is some of this data for public consumption?
So there's a great website called bearriverbasin.org, and it's sponsored by the Bear River Compact Commission. And so we have the provisional data is updated for all of the Bear Lake inflows and outflows and pumping, and our reservoir elevations downstream and the flows below our dams, as well, in addition to all of the USGS data that's replicated in that website. And also during the summer, all of the irrigation diversions are also on that webpage. So pretty cool website. It is kind of a more real-time kind of site. It's not archived, reviewed data. It does only go back about 10 years, but the review data is available from me directly.
Mr. Chairman, do you mind, Connelley, are you okay making your presentation an attachment that you can send over to me that I can disseminate with the minutes and any members that weren't present today?
Yep, will do.
Thank you.
Perfect. Okay, thank you so much, Colin. I self-proclaimed data junkie. I appreciated that. I think that was really good.
Thanks.
The next item on our agenda is a review of the BLM Public Scoping process for proposal to construct riparian and wet meadow restoration structures in Rich County. Ooh, I think I said all those words right. That was a long time. Anyway.
Sure.
I'm
I've been
on
asked to lead this because the letter came to me in the mail for some reason. Maybe you guys already know about this, maybe you don't care about it, but I thought I'd bring it to your attention. Oh, and we can do that. Maybe pass these around. So the BLM is proposing low-tech restoration structures throughout Rich County. And it sounds like their goal is to improve fish and wildlife habitat, water quality, floodwater dissipation. And they're seeking any public comments starting tomorrow until November 30th. So they'll pass these around. Everybody can take a look. If you don't care, have no comments, that's fine. But I thought it was interesting and I think it's good to be informed about what's happening in the watershed. Yeah.
I have the publication, but I can't see that they have any proposed locations for putting. Is it just general and random?
I don't see that either. Yeah.
They,
Because
way they stated, the way I looked at, the way I read it, they're gonna evaluate places and then wherever they feel it necessary.
This is just their way to get it blanket.
right, cover their bases.
But, it's interesting to me that they're looking at this where in the past I looked at doing some and they said you can't because of the on the ground.
Hmm.
And so when I've had watches in some of the plants or state grounds, I put those rock conversions to keep the water going down. Real well, but they so I think it's their way of getting every riparian involved into their system.
But don't they have about money to throw out?
Yeah, they've got about $9 million thrown to them to do that. And these are actually really good projects for if they choose the sites that will help with the silt load and stuff that are coming down Bear River into the lake. They had a bunch of these projects out between Cameron and Evanston on the Bridger Basin and the Bridger Creek and Twin Creeks, Salt Creek area that they did. We were involved in that with them and had a lot of other monies besides that money put with it. And we restored a bunch of the reservoirs that had been washed out. We diverted the Bridger Basin into an old gravel pit so that it would go into the gravel pit, slow the fast flow down, the silt could come out, then it would flow back in out the other end of the gravel pit and go on into the river, and it dropped the silt load, the nitrogen phosphate loads dramatically in the Bear River. So they're good projects to put in the right place. But what worries you is when they say they have $9 million from that and they're going to just go in. You don't know where they. That's
Thank you. I openly would admit I would not know where good locations would be, and so I think the public comment is very important on this project. There's probably not a lot of voices that would know the right spots, so let us know how we can help get the word out. Any other questions on that subject? We'll go to the next item.
Looks like someone
Anyone
has a hand
online?
I was gonna
raised.
say, I think we have comment here, sorry.
That's
Oh,
No,
hi. I had a question. So I wonder if this is about habitat and aquatic restoration in the area of Rich County where that dry fork fire occurred. I know that I've heard the BLM is proposing to put in these beaver dam analogs in that area where there was a wildfire. So I'm wondering if it's that area.
Anyone have any insight on that? I don't know. I didn't see it in this detail of, calling out any specific location, just Rich County. I think that would make sense. That would be one they'd consider. Okay. Maybe we'll see if we can help get an answer. But, all right, any other thoughts before we move on?
No other comments.
Okay. Next item is not sure who's gonna lead this one.
Nate's our representative.
Nate's gonna handle this on the, Great Salt Lake Advisory Council update.
For state council?
Yeah.
The Great Salt Lake Advisory, the Great Salt Lake Advisory would be Trevor.
Trevor,
Sorry,
okay.
Trevor.
Sorry.
Sorry, that was my.
All right. So Trevor, this one would be, any updates?
Yeah, there's a couple of key things that have happened in the last couple of months. So first of all, there was a bill passed last year by Representative Snyder that essentially requires the state engineer to develop a management process, essentially a priority schedule for the Great Salt Lake for the mineral extraction industry. The public meeting for that took place last week, and they released what that schedule would be. The most senior priority was 1940. So it's kind of anticipated that they'll explore the idea that's similar to what we've done here with Bear Lake, and the fact that when it hits a critical elevation, those water rights begin to be curtailed in some way. They're also open to voluntary reductions, like what has been done with Compass Minerals, because they understand that the lake is a longer term asset. So sometimes looking more holistically, that hard cutoff at a certain elevation is going to be much more advantageous to the state. Perhaps they take smaller cuts earlier, so they don't have to take as deep cuts later as the lake goes down. And so those are all still kind of in the works. There is a public comment available for that if you'd like to make a public comment on that. But they're starting to work through that process. Another thing that's upcoming is they'll have another Great Salt Lake Advisory Council meeting this next week. And I've been asked to present about my background as well as our council. So if you have anything that you'd like me to specifically make sure I include in my presentation, please send that over. I'm going to be preparing that probably Monday, Tuesday of next week. Just kind of why we're on the council. And just wanted to report that things have been going well there. The Great Salt Lake Advisory or the Great Salt Lake Management Integrated Management Plan is coming along. It was such a large effort, but it's still going to take several years to kind of move through. And at this point, they're getting to the end of the plan for the plan. And so kind of watch for that as it continues to develop. They are anticipating that there won't be as many water bills this session. Legislative leadership has indicated we kind of need to let the state engineer take a breath, get their heads back above the high water mark to implement the good things that they put on the table or put on the ground. We can see it forward. So I will believe it when I see it, but I'm hopeful that I'll be able to sleep a little bit in January, February this year, which would be nice. Trying to think if there's anything else. Box Elder County is in the middle of preparing its countywide master plan. And so if anyone from those areas has some additional input, they got missed by that process, or, they need to get a hold of the Conservancy District and make sure that their input's been given, because they're trucking along on that. And, I think that's about it for the Great Salt Lake. Do you have any other things to add from state council? They're so,
Just gonna say, the one from the state council, there is expected to be legislation, because the Great Salt Lake Watershed Council is the one that is not yet set up. Trevor's on there as a liaison, not an official member, because the Watershed Council doesn't exist yet. But it is expected to be legislation on how each side, I guess, wants that council set up. The Great Salt Lake Advisory Team would just like it to be them, with liaisons from the other watershed councils. The other watershed councils would actually like to have a seat on those boards. And so I think there will be legislation to tweak that one way or the other, so those discussions are ongoing. But that was, I think, from the state as far as our council. Have implications for us there. So we don't have a representative that's gonna run that bill yet. In discussions. And I'm with Trevor. I'm optimistic there won't be a lot of water bills, but behind the scenes, I'm hearing the numbers that are being written. So I think we'll see less, but there'll still probably be a dozen.
We can get the legislature to overcome the temptation to run bills and give it some time for what they've done last year
Right?
to take effect before they change it. That would be a defeat.
well, one of them, like, kind of making sure that we're reporting on the benefits of the legislation that's already happening. So,
Oh, certainly. Yeah. Of course, there will be really good bills. Let's see, Trevor, when is that meeting next week?
it's
Wednesday, isn't it?
yeah, Wednesday. And did you have anything else from the commissioner's office to add to my report?
No, I think, just about sum it up, I know that they're looking at kind of consolidating a couple of the strategic plans on Great Salt Lake. Focusing particularly on the 10-year mark. And, 2034 is not just 10 years, but it's also the Olympics. So that would be
Need to make sure we had a nice full lake for the Olympics.
So it's 2 weeks. It's on the 13th, 10 to 11:30 a.m. And there's a digital option. You can get that from the website or email me.
Okay. Thank you.
Just one question for you. You said that the bill from Snyder, and they were talking about voluntary reductions over time so that it doesn't all hit. But no. Does that also include the urban areas or is it just the rural areas?
Well, it's just the mineral extractors. These are the only ones that are doing that. So it doesn't include, on road cities. The problem with curtailing cities is that it's hard to bring. I mean, certainly people can stop watering their lawns to a certain degree and things like that. But obviously the drinking water can't ever stop. And so, I mean, even if you see ag rights getting converted over like data sweep right now over to municipal use, the farmers know how to go without, like how they talked about in 2021. They conserved and they went without on some crops. The urban sprawl, it's not as fluid. It's what they call it part of demand. So that expectation is always there. So it's going to be kind of interesting how they deal with that. Macro droughts.
Which is one of the points I made at one of the first meetings about the growth in the urban areas and the impact it's had on is never taken into consideration as to what effect that's had on the lake. It's always kind of from one to the other end.
Any additional discussion or questions on that subject for the next, move to the next item? Anyone online with question? Okay, next item we have is an open discussion regarding any known or relevant elements to be addressed during the legislative session. Let's get our wish list together now.
I think one would be to make sure from this council how we want to be represented on that Great Salt Lake Council. I mean, we talked about it, it's probably 3 or 4 meetings ago. We were pretty adamant that we wanted a seat, not just a token seat to be there and report back and forth, but actually have a vote like all the other councils have around the state. Just make sure that's still our point before that task force subgroup starts meeting with representative to run that bill.
Yeah, that was the one I had in mind, so, and it was mentioned significantly or sufficiently already, so I echo that. I think that should be a priority from this group. Any thoughts opposing to that support? I mean, anyone change their mind, I guess is the best way to say it. Okay.
And Nate, is your suggestion, the best we could ask for is just 1 seat, right? It's not gonna be
Yeah, that
proportional.
wasn't the original bill, right? Each sub-council around the Great Salt Lake Council will have 1 seat on the Great Salt Lake Council. So
Now, would this be in addition to the counties that have it within or border it?
It's one of the hard things.
yeah, because the county rep is only the county that touches, right? So that's only Box Elder. So Cache and Rich County get no representation on that.
So would
And
Box
even the
Elder
Box
kind of get
County
2? Would
I
they
don't
get
know
their,
that's been at many of the meetings that I've been.
Well, that's
So I don't think we're getting any representation.
The counties don't necessarily want to let that seat go. You can understand why, if you have representation, why would you think you should, but at the same time, they are for the most part, if you were to rank those that were most active on the Great Salt Lake Advisory Council, usually the county representation are the ones that are missing meetings. The Box Elder County one is the perfect example. The commissioner that's assigned that task right now isn't necessarily feeling like that's a huge priority for him. And so that's why I think the Watershed Council is more appropriate, because your Rich and half the water comes out of Cache County.
Yeah, and that's,
Feeds there side in Cache County, and Rich is the headwater storage for the system. So it's not like they don't have rights. So that'll be kind of the hard point, but there's a couple of legislators running water bills right now. Once they decide how it's going to go that way. So hopefully it falls our way. I think something along the lines of the letter we prepared last time, though, would be kind of the feeling of the council. I think it would be wise for us to make a vote on that we'd like that, and then giving the chairman and perhaps either Mr. Dodds or myself authorization to work with that, because he and I are down in the legislature quite a bit to deliver those letters and things. I think would be appropriate so that we're not kind of caught with an email authorization like we were last time. But I'll something to make a motion.
Can I make a suggestion? So the State Watershed Council just made a subcommittee to talk about this Great Salt Lake Watershed Council. You could also ask if you can sit on that subcommittee, if anyone cares that much. But I think a letter is great too.
Yeah, and I think the letter would be better to go once we have a legislator that's gonna run a bill too. But yeah, I'll be involved in
Okay.
that subgroup too.
Okay.
Yeah, more input. Yeah, and I agree with Trevor that the county commissioner that's there now, right? He's there to represent Box Elder County in all aspects of how Great Salt Lake could affect industry, economy, everything. We're there to represent it, with the water issues. So it's quite different seat, I think, on that. on that council. Especially where the bear is being looked at as the main solver of the great salt lake problem. We need that seat on there.
Well, and proportionality on that council, I'm wondering if there should be an element to the amount of water contributed.
Yeah, I think that would get pretty hard to push for that.
That would be way.
Because that would
Sure,
be,
we
that'd be
have
going
another
above
seat,
beyond what
but-
the original bill stated.
Yeah.
So I don't think we.
I think
We get
amongst
our
our peer
original seat,
councils, it
voting
would be
seat.
hard to say.
Is there any
It's worth a little bit.
any reason there could be a memorandum of understanding or whatever between Rich Cash and Box Elder, that Box Elder didn't have anybody interested with the other commissioners could represent them.
If this failed, we could maybe go that route. We don't get to see. We could maybe look at that possibly.
I know we've got one or two commissioners that public's always saying that's all they do is go to the public meetings and don't spend any time in the county, so I don't get that a problem.
Well, that's a good point. Weber County is very good about having alternates. And so I think that's a really good point that maybe we ought to encourage the commissioners to have an alternate because I mean, all the commissioners are busy. If they can't make it, it could be one like a single day. Yeah.
So last year, Trevor, we'd have. Is that what you're looking for again, or do you want to? Or
I think, well, where we're kind of getting out in front of it with this committee, I don't know that it needs to be quite the same levels. It's more like we either support it or we feel it ought to be a little bit different. But I think our stance is the same, is it not? And maybe we vote, make it, and I might make the motion that we keep the same position as outlined in the previous letter with authorization to adapt according to circumstance as the bill moves forward.
So that, I heard a motion. Okay. So, any discussion on the motion?
And as a point of clarification, the chair can represent us as a group as far as what constitutes, the changes that are needed.
Okay. We have a motion and a second. All in favor of the motion, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, I think that was an excellent suggestion to reauthorize essentially the position that we took on that letter. So thank you. And yeah, I intend to be committed to that. Perfect. Any other points of concern or details we would like to discuss regarding the upcoming legislative session?
so something I would like to talk about a little bit as a member of this council. When our governor closed our areas for new appropriation of water, at least in Box Elder County, he left open you can drill a private well idea. And what are you guys' thoughts and feelings on this? I know what chances are, and he and I share the same concerns and frustrations with it. But how long do we even leave this thing open like it is? How do we make changes to get it? We're gonna close it, let's close it. Not gonna close it, let's open it back up so that the municipalities can do what they need to do and provide water to these individual homes that want to just sit and punch wells. I mean, it's happening in Cache Valley. I live in Benson. I sit and watch that whole west side and we just punch holes.
Mm-hmm.
Do you mind when we're in the room if we state our name and who we're with for the folks that are online?
So I'm Randy Udy.
Thanks.
I live in Cache Valley. I also work for Better.
And I would say, at least in Cache, so we're updating the groundwater study.
Yeah.
Half $1 million from legislature last year to do it, probably 2-year study. And when that's finished, at least for Cache County, that's when we feel that decision should be made, whether to open it or close it. Right now, we think it should stay where it is, but if the new study shows what the old one says, in Cache County at least, I don't think there's any reason to close it at all, municipal or residential. Fox Hills is a different groundwater situation. So your study
Well, as
makes.
a resident of Cache Valley, it still frustrates me for the same reason. They get to punch a well, they irrigate, they can irrigate a quarter acre.
It all depends on how much water. They can irrigate 50 acres out of the well. They want rights to transfer.
Well, yeah,
And so.
but my frustration is, Nate, is everybody's keeping punching holes, but the people punching the holes, they don't take care of those wells. The Conservancy District would.
And see, my option, not from the conservation district side, but as a private citizen, government doesn't need to supply everyone in the state with water. Right? We don't need to run a pipeline all the way through Benson or, right, ring the whole Cache County with a pipeline. It's going to cost tens if not hundreds of millions of dollars to supply the rural residents with water, and the groundwater supply is adequate to meet those needs. I mean, if there's already a system in place, a water line going down, it doesn't make sense to drill a well. If there's no water system in place, meaning Cache County, that was not a long time.
Well, I just think that somebody needs to police these people a little bit better.
Sitting right behind you. The water rights police in essence, right? But
On Nate, in Washington County, we've got subdivisions that are punching 30 holes in a subdivision. All the while, there's a district main line.
yeah, I think that comes down to the county can set standards on that. County planning commission could say, if you're in an area that can be served by a public water supply, you transfer your water rights and they supply you. But in Cache County, we're opposite. We don't have that. If you're in the county, you don't have that option anywhere to hook onto a private or a public county. So I think for growth and development, just saying we close the basins totally. And really the only thing it closed is on a new water. You get one water right if it's an original parcel. Right? If not, if you've got an existing water right, you can drill a well in any county you want. I can go buy a water right. Farmer Joe transfer from surface water to a well, drill a well anywhere in Cache County. That's not been closed with government funds. It's just a new water right. But I can go buy, I mean, there's a lot of water rights out there. So I can go buy those and drill a well and pump whatever that water right is. I think at least for Cache County, the new groundwater study is going to determine which way we can put it one way.
I was just gonna make a comment that the proclamation does expire in November. And so they are looking, well, whether it may be up to the type, what exactly is going to happen. I mean, part of the issue here that a lot of people are concerned about is the fact that although the priority is extremely junior on a new well right that's put in, there is in the basics of water law, this anticipation that culinary use supersedes all other uses. And so it usurps the priority system. And I've had a regional engineer in the state, not our regional engineer, but in another part of the state, simply say that those wells will never be turned on. And so you can see the level of concern that the good water rights that are held by the people in this room, if they're the ones that are curtailed, address the Great Salt Lake issue while we continue to punch down single domestics, that's kind of a problem. And so it'll be kind of interesting to see what they decide to do with the proclamation, because I mean, Cache has a unique policy in the fact that if the parcel existed in 1980, you're allowed to punch one well on that parcel. Is it 1980? Can't remember.
1980. One well, one single domestic use on that parcel.
And so it allows for what he talked about in the fact that if it's clear out of the county in an area where there's no water, and I just, I want my son to be able to work on the farm, or I want my daughter to be able to live out by us, we can commute into town or whatever. It allows for that kind of situation, but the 18 wells and 18 lot site type of thing is being exploited to the point that there's more water being issued in these wells than some of the large producers are saving in the ag optimization projects. So what are we doing? Paying for development. So there's two sides of the coin that have to be understood here. I don't want to see our water rights be shut off to preserve the lake while we're developing it. And
Is there? Let's see, so the proclamation coming from the governor's office is that our best? Go direct to the governor, or is there a legislator that's in our suggested corner on this?
My guess would be it gets extended again. But continue to finish these studies before the state engineer makes a final decision, just like they did last time. Just extend it. It expire, they can extend it forever
Yeah.
too, and not let it expire, or they can let it expire, or they can change it.
Like policy line up.
Sorry, can you state your name and speak up for the,
Skylar about water rights. I'm just saying, I think it would make things worse if they didn't have a new policy in place. The governor's proclamation was removed for your reasons that you're talking about. Because if that comes back up all the way back up, then you're not, then it's not 18 separate plantings for these, small domestic rights. They're large filings to irrigate ground that's never been irrigated before, and to put a home on it. So.
what is the schedule for area 29? There's scheduled on yet of when the new policy is going to be at least discussed.
So we held the one meeting, but I think, once again, I think, like you said, everything's a priority. I feel like there's so many legislative things going on. And stuff that's from the state engineer in so many directions that I don't know when we'll come back to it. It's still on my radar. But I don't know when we'll come back to it. Hopefully finish it up. I mean, I have an idea. But it'd be good to get more feedback.
Nate, will you remind me when the groundwater study will be completed?
Completed?
You don't have a timeline? Okay, I don't know. That's why I don't remember.
I would guess sometime in 27.
And you think they'll update the policy after that's after the findings are kind of.
That's my understanding, at least, then they'll start to look at which way they need to go to update that policy. But again, that's only going to answer the question for Cash, right? Your guys' groundwater studies a little different, but as far as when it was done, it's more recent than what our existing. So my guess is that they'll at least start to look at it in more detail. Because that was our pushback. The county council side, from the water district council side, in Cache County is to totally shut it off when our old study shows that we're putting in 220,000 acre feet a year. We're only taking out 30 to close that basin totally. Just didn't make sense. We need to update it to say, is that still where we're really at? We're still only pulling out 15% of what's going in every year. We're not even close to safe yield. But if this new study comes back and shows we're only putting in 50 and we're taking out 40, then it's a different answer.
Well, it's so interesting because this is Trevor again. Conley's presentation, he noted that the compact sort of be negotiated after Pacific Corpus established power generation on the Bear. Its last dam went in 1923, but yet they didn't actually sign the compact until 1955, if I remember right. So, I mean, what we're hearing here is it's probably going to take some time to do it right. It's, I hope the legislature understands your water policy takes a little longer than a session, a year.
Anything actionable out of that conversation that I need to call attention on? I think good points, and we've got some good notes, but okay, I didn't want to leave something on there that maybe I forgot. With that, we'll move to the next item, which would be the review of our membership and our contact information. So we make sure we get in touch with everyone that should be included.
and Mr. Chairman, this comes from Carly and I wanting to make sure that we have an updated list with contact information for those of you that have reached out since our last meeting, as well as others we suspect may need updating. Carly, you and I didn't really iron out perhaps a shareable document. The challenge may be for folks to update. The challenge I fear is we'll be in the echo chamber of the folks that already get our messaging. It's like Micah's new today from a new position, but we certainly would like him and the office he represents to be present. Mitch, you had mentioned, and maybe that was my failure as I admitted to you, that you hadn't gotten an update. And so I sent you something separately. So I guess I'll be a little open-ended with the question to the group, and that is, what do we think is best as far as being able to get contact information? Carly's pulled up here. For the folks that are online, you can likely see it much easier than folks in the room, for readability anyway. But we have a spreadsheet that's in a Google Doc with everybody's name, who they represent, or their perspective by entity, their email, phone number, and so forth. But there may be other interested parties who would like to get our calendar invites too. So I guess, anybody have any ideas that you've seen work with other boards and committees? Yeah, Trevor.
So I would think that if you're getting the emails now, they would send out this, we could check, make sure our information is accurate. It's all caught up, and we also may have some contacts for some of the people who maybe didn't make it today. I think it put those over, such as phone numbers, things like that, or on length, things like that. The people who are here today who didn't get our free email, if they put it in the chat, they're online, and if they're here in person, we just do a sign in. Just we could take an agenda, just direct it to contact information. I think that would get everybody, I think, just so far. And then they probably need to contact secretary in the future if they're not getting the email. Just have the secretary added to this list.
They should be able to just go to the state website.
For the public notice website, sure.
You just click on that, then you automatically get added to all emails for it. If someone new becomes interested, we don't know. That's, I think, the easiest place for most people. If they want to get Moses, whatever, maybe they want to go to it.
So in my case, this is Mark at Bear Lake Watch. I talked to Carly this week.
And I feel so bad.
I was on Christie's email list, but I wasn't on Landon's email list. And so once Christie left, I kind of got left in the dark. So,
Sorry about that.
oh, that's fine. Yeah, so I talked to Carly yesterday, but we got that straightened out. And I don't know. I don't know if he's got Connell's on the list, but Connell resigned from Bear Lake Watch. So we need to make sure that they're, but you have the right email that you have, that we talked about yesterday, except,
Yeah.
did you send an agenda? I didn't get an agenda in my.
Then I'm gonna own that.
We didn't have the agenda until very recent days.
No, I was just kind of wondering.
You would get.
Did see an agenda, so hopefully.
Yeah, I'm on top of that grenade. That's mine.
Yeah, I was just waiting. She said I'll send an agenda. Then I didn't see it.
Yeah, sorry.
Uh,
Should have followed.
I did, when I got the notice, I notified the representative of Ridge County had on Bragg. Went on some on the regional commissions, let them know the meeting is gonna be here, hopefully if they want to take it.
I'm glad you did that. Thank you, Mayor. And for what that's worth, like Mitch and some others in the room may know, but at Bragg, we've had some leadership changes in the last couple of months. So depending on even where that went, it may not be getting to people. I had the thought this morning that in a new position that I've gotten the last couple of weeks, I don't get any of the emails forwarded for the predecessor. And I learned in a very anxiety-inducing 7 a.m. phone call that a federal grant deadline was today. And I'm paying attention to my phone because I'm having to rely upon staff that are new to me that were not my previous department. Hey, what do you know about this? And can we get that info submitted ASAP? So, it's just one of those things. I do appreciate that, but let me know if there's Bragg specific stuff that you just mentioned that I need to help get your way or that to Mayor Mike, who I saw here briefly for a minute. Thanks.
You feel like you have direction on working through this?
I like Trevor's idea, Chairman, yes, that Carly and I will email out to the group, this spreadsheet she's showing. Ask you to review it for your own contact information. I would just expand on that to maybe connect this dot a little bit more bluntly. If you know someone who should be on that list too, and they're not getting the information, not that you're your brother's keeper, so to speak, but if you can just help us make sure that we're up to snuff on that, that'd be helpful. And then we'll continue to respond to folks like Mark and me and, you know, Mitch, and just update that. But Carly and I will figure that out, because she's also, bless her heart, doing a little bit extra work for our council and others. I've let her know that I have yet to still be able to get access to the public notice website as a secretary to upload things. So, you know, that's beyond her. That's beyond her, but she's taking that on. And Trevor, thank you for, or you know, anybody that's working with her to make that happen. Thank you. Appreciate it. So yeah, Mr. Chairman, I think we're about as covered as we can be for the time being.
To that, the only thought I had to add would be, if there's another type of communication we should be putting out, just let me know what you feel like you're interested in, or what people in general can benefit from the perspective of getting these councils up and going. You know, it's still a new thing, right, statewide, but how we fulfill our scope mission best. Thank you for that discussion. Let's see. All right, next item is to talk about what would we like to talk about in 2025. Of course, that comes along with the conversation about the legislative session, but any other particular topics that we would want a presentation or suggestions for items on future agendas? Yeah, Trevor.
Bear Lake Watch recently did a series of meetings concerning sediment into the Barron River. I would like a short presentation from Bear Lake Watch on the progress of the milfoil efforts, because it has potential to affect us all. If they could do that maybe midsummer or when those treatments are happening, and just kind of let us know how things are going. Be helpful. Keeping that invasive species out of our rivers and reservoirs, because the boats will spread them to even upstream. So I think it'd be good for us here.
We had about a 20-minute presentation given to us from Utah side and the Idaho side last night. Good presentation on how they're attacking it.
For the two of you coordinate and maybe some future meeting.
Yeah, no, I was.
I think you coordinate.
Yeah, it'd be easier if I just contact your chair and give him contact information. When they spend, how much treatment they've done, the seal. So what we're gonna do is Bear Lake Watch. We had those two symposiums a few weeks ago on sediment and milfoil, and we're gonna be posting those on our website. If you want, I can send a link to where so Utah State is the milfoil symposium. We brought in scientists from all around the country that have dealt with milfoil in many different locations, and so we'll have that available for viewing shortly. And then the sediment one, we're doing it in that post. So if you want, I can certainly send out links to that, but we can certainly do a presentation next meeting or whatever you'd like to do.
Yeah, I mean, you know, off the cuff, my first thought would be that would be great topic for next meeting. So yeah, we'll be in touch. We'll be in touch and get that ironed out.
And we'll have that presentation. We're gonna have them do a presentation, I think, over here to Water Conf March 2 on the milfoil studies. That might be a good thinking ways out, like a tour next summer here, milfoil stuff and sediment, and probably could give those that haven't seen kind of how that mud lake inlet outlet stuff works out there. That might be a good, we try to put together a tour for the council every year somewhere.
So it's milfoil, big problem.
Yeah, we've got, I mean, Tony Grove, we have it there too, so it's in the system already.
And, you can just spread it. The challenge of Bear Lake is two state. And we're not getting the same level of attention between both. So working on that. And it's just fed by sediment. So it's a double-edged sword, because the milfoil just loves that. So it's double-edged swords are two different kinds of milfoil. You want the other. Yeah, so I'd certainly sit around and do this closing we down in about 4 hours to start.
Yeah, they told us last night about, we have that Eurasian infiltration now, and they're trying to take care of that where you have actual milfoil and sweat pollination between them, so that's it.
Well, and for any canal or agriculture, like open channel operators in our system, it's the first part of that presentation was really good as far as how they approach to kill this one invasive. It has some ability and how to control sago pondweed and algae. I learned a lot, so just plug if we want. And that's a really expensive component of open channel operations. Like this.
So, Nate, are you suggesting maybe we don't have that presentation because of will be covered in the conference, or you want to do both? I was thinking it would be good for both, A, because not all of us might make it to that conference, but B, that all of us that do see that presentation that would happen here in this council can then also be informed members of the room at the conference to help drive home the point.
Well, I was wondering for our next meeting, might we schedule it in conjunction? Because doesn't that end at like 3 PM? Your supposedly, or your,
It'll be a little later this year, because we're gonna do the poster session, because we're gonna team up with USU Spring Runoff Conference again. So the lunch is gonna be a little longer this year, and we'll do the poster session during lunch. It'll probably get over closer to 4:30-ish. That'll be on March 25th. Pretty sure that's right. And then the 26th will be up on campus at USU, the second day.
but if we were to coordinate the same days, even if it's a little bit later meeting, we're not going up for 2 meetings or 2 days. Or, I mean, a lot of us have to go to the other anyway. As far as schedule. Next one would be January.
That'll be first quarter.
I guess the legislative session's coming up though, so.
Yeah.
Good to have.
I think we want to meet before that.
Yeah.
During the first part.
Yeah.
That was my suggestion, was at least we put Q1s in before the session, like last time. Yeah, and thank you for making the suggestion of a tour. Yeah, love to see in person some of the things that, Connelley described and witness the operation. So that is the top of my list for suggested tours this time around, or for next year.
So I've lived in Cascade all my life, but like Conley gave the presentation about Bear Lake, I'd like to know more about it. Dan.
You didn't come on our tour 2 years ago. We gotta go into Dan.
Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, Highland Dam, operations to cover, et cetera. So, we only have 2 hours for these meetings scheduled, right? And the tours, I mean, if we did them, I'm not necessarily, so we have this meeting and schedule a tour on a different day of, space them out. Is that an acceptable, is that workable with this group's schedule to maybe add more Watershed Council related dates, but those dates being, my opinion, hopefully a very value add experience of a tour or a specific on-site review of something. I want to do the feel of this group's openness to maybe adding 1 or 2 more days to our calendar for this
Let me
obligation.
I'm the secretary for the Bear Report on the task force. And we, like you guys, our agendas are pretty similar. We deal mostly with water issues and have been meeting for many, many years. What we found is that we've rotated from having like in-house meetings. We get presentations to a more flexible schedule where we do meetings occasionally, but oftentimes we're out in the field, we're actually looking at stuff so that we're not always in the office. It gives more hands-on experiences and more beneficial.
That's what he's saying. They want you all over here for the Bear Lake polar plunging system. Next meeting.
Keep it on our calendar.
Thank you, Nate.
Yeah.
We used to do it every year. Especially the Olympics, it's cold.
Wow. Yeah, I was not able to go on the tour last year, but, that was over it.
The tours are very helpful.
Yeah, that was to the Cub River operations, right? So the tour was
If you were planning on doing the tour, of the central division, it wouldn't hurt to have a couple of presentations that they're doing that would make you aware of things that are going on, how their research is going with it, with everything from the weather station with Utah State, and they put those weather buoys out all summer long, and what the temperatures do and how it affects their fisheries and everything, and for the presentation of Bud Light where they built their system to keep all the trash fish out so they can fish at a better start. Now they've transferred from having 90% of the fish that are in the lake are planted to they've allowed it so that they're being run up the creeks like they used to do, and it's native trout. There's a lot of stuff involved in like some pretty good presentations that make you appreciate the tour of what's going on in the area. So if you had a couple of those different presentations in your March meeting, good for you if you were planning on doing the tour. Yeah. And I think that would be wise every time you want to have a tour of an area. Very ahead of time. So you just
The other thing.
great. Yeah, thank you.
The other thing you got going on up here is they're supposed to start construction tomorrow on the new marina, $60 million. It'll be well into construction next spring. At least that's what they say. I got an email from them saying that
I'm convinced we could spend a week over here pouring all the assets. Yeah, no, okay, well, we'll work through some suggestions and come forward with that, so thank you. Anything else anybody wants to make sure is on our radar for agenda items? Anything online?
No, folks still online. Everybody's turning their camera off, so they're being smart and double dutying it.
Yeah.
And if they had any comments, just put it in the chat or raise your hand and we'll have you speak into the room.
So we have on the agenda stated the next item would be public comment. So that would be just a free for all, any specific subject, but maybe we kind of hit that with the last line item, so.
I got just a couple of other things.
Sure. Please.
I could. So we worked with Utah State University on this is Mark. Besides the symposiums we held at Sentiment and Milfoil, we partnered with Utah State University on 2 projects this year that might be of interest to folks here. One's called the Bear Lake Data Repository. Basically, we took decades of information that's available from
I was looking at the other day, 1932 or whatever, but decades of information have compiled it into a single source. So you go back and access any physical, chemical, or biological data that's been compiled about Bear Lake for many, many years, right on our website.
Okay. Remind me of the website.
It's bearlakewatch.com.
Bear Lake Watch. Okay.
And it'll be saved data repository on there. You kind of, there's different tabs that you can search around till you find it, but it's got all, if anybody likes to research anything about Bear Lake data, it's there. One spot for you to get to. So we really appreciate you trusting. It was Dr. Nelson that actually worked on that with his student. And the other thing we just finished up and with Reverend Bean, Dr. Bean and Kevin Moon was the high dimensional data transition state. So these are really smart people. So basically what this does is that it deals with water quality. So those USGS platforms that we've had out there for 6 years collecting data. So we're actually using that to predict the future of Bear Lake. Basically, they can take this data and look at the water quality and actually predict what's going to happen in the future based on water quality. So based on what we collect. So we're just finishing that project up. That'd be another good thing to maybe show when it's completely done. We're just finishing it up, but basically it takes all of this data that's been collected and we can actually predict. It uses machine AI, basically machine learning to predict what's going to happen and just particular chemical changes or water quality changes in the lake and what will occur in the future. So those are available as well.
Mr. Chairman, the group, Connelley provided a link here in the chat regarding that first one, the data repository. Well,
Yeah.
Connelley, was that true or wait, what is that? Hydro share?
Yes, I don't care.
Okay, yeah.
Yes, the Bear Lake Data Repository link. Yeah, that's that.
Thank you. So between Carly and I, we'll get that out in the post-meeting minutes.
Great. Thank you. Anything else before we adjourn?
Bill, is the signing from the council, so you
Yes.
might want to consider seeing her. I don't remember what interest she.
It's similar
Fish and
to,
wildlife.
yeah, it's similar to trout island.
Oh, okay. Okay, so then, yeah.
But she said they're not replacing her position. So maybe-
But yeah, we do have a gym cover.
Okay. Yeah, thank you. I apologize. I meant to make mention of Van's retirement and express gratitude to her for being a part of this council and helping us make progress here. And so thanks for the reminder, Carly. Okay, if there's nothing else, we will adjourn. We need a motion.
No, chair prerogative.
Okay, we are adjourned. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you again, Colin. Oh,
Yeah.
we did not pick the date.
Well, Jim and Melissa have left.
They jumped off. Okay, sorry, guys. That's not a line item on here I meant to. All right. Anyone have dates they know would not work in January? Is maybe where I'd like to start that question.
Still looking for a Thursday? Technically,
Thursdays
Thursday the
have
second.
worked well for me.
From the holiday. But let's see, what is today? Today's the last Thursday of the month, so that would technically be the 30th. Oh, well, we did this differently because normally we the 4th.
We're off a week.
Session begins Tuesday, the 21st. So, and Thursday, Mr. Chairman, are county days down on the hill, which I know is relevant to you as well as a couple of others.
Well, so, we want to meet prior to the session, 16th?
I wouldn't be.
No,
I need to be at another meeting for Brad. Forestry. That doesn't mean that, I might try to take minutes.
Is Thursday the best day of the week?
You do?
Yeah.
What do you do? Oh, okay, well, I need to get with you offline to know how to do that better. What was the question,
The
Chairman?
question is Thursday the best day of the week for this group still? And would we want to push then, you know, the 19th? I would think the 19th, the 9th or the 16th are our options for the Thursdays prior to the session. One or the other better. Secretary has a conflict on the 16th. I would assume either is out for you.
Second is the only one. It's January, it seems like it works for me. So
Okay. Since that, hearing no objection to a specific date yet in January, except from the secretary, would the second be okay?
2nd of January.
Yeah.
I don't know if we would have.
know what bills,
No, yeah, that might
Because I
be,
think usually that week right after you get back from Christmas, all the birds get flushed out of the hedge, so to speak.
right.
You kind of know what's coming down the pipeline.
Okay.
If they're gonna let you know before it's session. Sometimes it's just.
Mr. Chairman, as I was looking at other days, it looks as though I may have the same thing scheduled on the 14th as the 16th that would provide that conflict. I need to find out from that state entity which day that really is, because the invite is from the same person twice.
Okay.
So I don't actually know. Maybe the 16th of look, I don't know.
Do we have to do it on a Thursday?
Oh, we don't have to.
No, but you also don't have to have me.
Yeah.
I have to.
Well, if you don't, then that means Carly and I have to make up.
I already tried to twist her arm to be the secretary at the start of the meeting.
Yeah, no, it does not have to be a Thursday. That's just been the day that we've historically used, a day of the week. And particularly trying to target the fourth Thursday of the month with the flexibility in Q1 legislative session. So, yeah, I mean, if there is another day of the week that works for most everyone, we could adjust, but personally, I think the 16th would, or sorry, is that right? Yeah, the 16th would be the best, especially if your meeting is supposed to be the 14th instead.
And if not,
What about the 23rd? The first few days of legislative session, they work on budget.
Mhm.
So nothing that we would be interested in is going to necessarily be moving along yet. Any, like.
The only conflict there would be, I would have that's typically the day on the Hill for the council, the county council or county commissioners. And we have a scheduled standing meeting with UAC. So
Would a later day work? Like, is that an all-day affair?
I kind of put those
Yeah.
meetings, they start caucus meetings in the morning at 7. And some go to it, not all, but
yeah, and I
the
can
main
step
one
away
everybody
for
goes to is
remote,
10 to noon.
you know, that's what, if that would work best for this group, I would be willing to do that. So,
Maybe it's a virtual meeting. I mean, I'm just
Yeah.
throwing that out there. If that makes it easier for you, Mr.
and I mean, given January, the weather could be absolutely terrible and want a remote anyway, so. Yeah, we hope, right? That's what we want.
Good point, Randy.
We want, so. Maybe that's the day. I mean, that makes sense to me, but then we'd have some bearing on the topics from the session, so.
That's a good point. So Trevor, what do you think? I mean, like, because if we did it at 1 o'clock, those UAC meetings are usually done by 12:30 if they bleed over, but the Olmsted room has to be turned over to the next renters. First week is their budget, but we'd know what bills are there unless they're hidden. So that could be germane. And would anybody be opposed in January to having that first meeting be virtual? Bueller, no.
Okay.
So could be an option.
All right. What's planned for the 23rd then? January 23rd? Our Q1 meeting at 1 o'clock.
Virtually.
Yeah. Great. Thanks for that reminder. Sorry for the premature adjournment. Now with that said, we are adjourned. Thank you.
Thanks, Connelley, for sticking around.
Yep, no worries. Thanks, guys.
Yes, see you later.